be with the idea of it. We'd looked at 20 houses. So my husband and I sat down. We had a 2-hour conversation about what if we moved to Michigan.
Had he ever been to Michigan?
Once or twice. He's born and raised in Miami Beach.
Surprise!
He's Cuban and Spanish. He's a first-generation American. So we had a 2-hour discussion, and he'd grown up in Miami Beach when it was very different, when it wasn't quite such a vanity-focused society, or the who's its and the what's its. And we thought that this would be what we wanted. So we did it. He actually, for as feminist as I am, so he flew here to Michigan since I could not, and he picked out the house we were moving into with my father and with my older brother. I got to see it on a choppy video. So then after our daughter was born, I moved across the country 10 days later on a flight into a house that we bought that I had never seen.
Did you like it?
We moved.
Needless to say, yes.
They did a great job with a short amount of time.
Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, right?
Correct. So we actually looked
at
maybe buying a building downtown and making our house out of a building downtown. We looked at actually the bakery building right across the street. But we decided that we wanted to have kind of some acreage and some trees, and that's what he wanted. And I won the battle on moving him here, so he won that battle.
Honey, it's good to pick and choose your battles.
Yes, I agree.
So you're probably very happy there, I'm sure.
We are. We've been there for almost 2 years. We designed and built our house. My husband he's a trained architect engineer. When we moved here, he started his own company probably 3-4 months later. So I stayed working in healthcare while his company was taking off. And we built our home. We built a carriage house. He's got the studio right there. And then
nice.
I started my company last year. So now we run 2 companies, which is interesting.
But you're there sometimes.
I'm there. I think I have more freedom and more flexibility in my schedule now. I'll usually try and schedule a half day of just calls. And if I take all of my calls at the pool while I watch my kids
that's
with the babysitter, as long as the babysitter's there also, we're okay.
Right. So that's really nice. And, a lot of times the kids just need to turn around and see that you're there. And that matters, because that's what will go into their memories.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, I like to take time out to be with them, especially on the days my mom watches them 1 day a week. So I like it when I can get away and spend time with my mom and with the kids. That's always fun. Yeah.
So is your mother here?
Yeah, my mom owns a quilt shop over in Frankenmuth.
Oh, very good.
Mm-hmm.
A
quilt shop.
Very
The
good. You
front
want to
porch
give her
quilt
a
shop?
little plug, front porch quilt shop.
The front porch quilt shop.
I bet our friend Pam knows her.
Yeah.
Pam Stillwell Binder. She's a quilter up in the thumb somewhere.
They probably know each other then.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
All those quilt people know each other.
They do.
They do. They're like little quilt club. So our topic today is about growth and change. And the reason I thought that that would fit is because cities need to grow and to change, and especially because of everybody went suburban for a while, and now it's starting to change a little bit. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it has to do with connectivity and culture. We don't want to be in our houses out in the suburbs necessarily anymore. I think that we want more from that. It's interesting, I think, more so how social media and the digital age has made us so interconnected, yet so far apart, that sometimes people just rather put their phones down and sit in a park or walk around on the street. We don't want to buy everything off Amazon.
Right.
I think especially locally what I'm seeing in Michigan, there's a lot of baby boomers or people that they love the quality of life here and they love our town. If we don't have a housing option for them where they don't have yard maintenance and things like that, they want to pick up and still be able to go to their cabins. And then if they have a house or a condo that affords them an easy lifestyle to pick up and go, they can visit their kids off in college more often. They can travel. It just makes things a little bit more simpler.
very true. And it wasn't like that for a long time. Like it's funny to watch how things are cyclical. Like everybody moved and to malls, and now look at malls are all suffering.
Yeah.
And downtowns are starting to flourish a little bit
Yeah.
more. And I love seeing that. Not that I wish malls would go. They have a purpose as well. But because there's a Yonkers, I don't think there's a place downtown big enough to hold a Yonkers. Those big stores like that are really good.
I'd argue that the PNC building would be a fantastic
true.
department
That's
store.
true. That's true. Good point. Well, when I was growing up, we had an O'Neill's, a Polsky's, a Higbee's, a Macy's, a May Company. All of those were 3-story buildings downtown.
Yes.
And I think that it was here, too. There were a lot of,
Yes.
like that one was the Kresge building.
building.
What else?
Neps.
What was the one that you are working on now? Was it always just a bank building?
It was a bank for 92 years. It was originally built
92
by
years.
a railroad magnate, and the uppers were always different commercial spaces. But my father's actually owned the old JCPenney building since I was a child in the 90s. So I grew up playing hide and go seek with my brothers in
JCPenney.
old buildings.
So this is just kind of like coming home to you,
it is
doing this type of work.
My mom owned the decorating palette when it was the building that's now Tim's Fine Tobacco. So when I was through high school,
Yeah.
my mom had that building. My dad had this building. So as much as we've always moved around, downtown Bay City's probably felt the most like home.
Huh, isn't that interesting?
Correct.
It used to be.
Used to be.
Yeah. Oh, it's not anymore? No.
So that's very interesting. I love stories like this. So growth and change. You know, I'm a life coach, and I was in real estate for 20 years, and it was hard breaking into commercial real estate back then because it was a good old boys network. And I had
good old boys.
Yeah, and I mean good old boys.
Oh yeah.
And they'd make these remarks, and one guy hit me on the butt once. But I had a man that was mentoring me that kept taking me to those meetings and making me answer hard questions in front of those guys to let them know that I knew my stuff. Right. And so I eventually made it in there. Raleigh Kokinda, he was a good guy. But so I know that feeling of trying to break into an all male or at least a predominantly male business career, and you really have to prove yourself to those guys.
Yes.
And you're doing that.
I think I'm doing fairly well.
And that's part of growth and change because you're making a big difference in Bay City here.
Yes.
You really are. And I congratulate you for that. But you're also growing in the process and making some changes inside yourself. And as you get more and more confident and worm your way into that good old boy network, you're going to change.
Yeah. I think even the process that I've been through this summer with the bank building has definitely been a growing and a learning process. There's been some good old boys along the way.
I can imagine. You have a story you want to share?
Nope.
Not at this time. Not at this time. Perhaps at a later date.
Perhaps.
After, you should keep a journal, and when that building's finished, when you're finished, we should have a show called The Legacy.
Oh, yeah, but then she may not be able to get anything done later on, and we may need the good old boys.
She can
in
just
that
tell
work.
some funny stories, and you don't ever have to say names.
Right.
Yeah. And this is a women's internet radio network.
Right.
What are the chances that they'll be listening?
Slim to none.
Yes. So I think you'll be safe.
Probably.
So I'd start my journal tomorrow if I were you. It would be hilarious.
I would just need time to start writing it down.
Right. You
Yeah.
could record it,
That's true.
like in the car when you're driving and stuff.
Yeah.
Or by the pool.
My favorite comeback tends to be And usually with a contractor, someone that's just like working on the building or working in some area before they know me or have been introduced to me, and they'll say, wow, I hope they do something great with this building. I hope they do this, or I hope they do that. And I usually reply saying, I'll tell her you said so. I
like that. They still don't know that it's you.
No.
Oh, wait till they find out. You know what it kind of reminds me of? Have you ever seen that show, Undercover Boss?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me
It does.
of that.
Yeah.
They're going to be very surprised, aren't they? Well, I'm sure that they must know by now. A lot of them must know by now.
And those that do probably aren't saying anything.
Right. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of so in it and so in my own little world and everything that I have to do. I was blown away at the amount of attention that facade received last week. I had people messaging me and telling me how many hits it had on their social media, and I was stunned. I was so nervous because it's still not a done deal that we'll be able to do that redevelopment.
Right.
So it felt like this major promise to the community that I'm working diligently to try and keep. So I was just stunned. My acupuncturist was in Chicago over the weekend, and her friends in Chicago were mentioning it.
Oh,
they brought it up.
gosh.
I've had emails from historic preservationists in Kansas that their entire
Nice.
office is talking about it. So it's been very humbling.
And how many
wonderful.
people were out on the street watching it?
Yeah.
Last night we had book club here, and there were a few people at book club that hadn't seen it yet. And so I said, oh, well, let's walk down there. And we walked down there, and they were like, oh, my God. And I said, I know. So that was a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
That right there was a big area of growth for you. The fact that you went ahead and did that, kudos.
Thank you. I had to do it for the Park Service. It had a personal meaning for me in that I've been working on this privately since January. It became public that I was working on it in June. But for a long time, it was always me putting in all of this work without any pay, wondering if it'll ever pay off. And I'm still not sure that it will. But there was a really, really proud moment in that I would always kind of tell people or tell my husband, I would love it if she could just have the sun on her face. Because I've always kind of, the way that building was chopped up and re-engineered, it always felt very masculine to me. So I love the idea of it having a woman's touch again.
Yes.
I hired a female architect.
Oh, yay.
One of the best in the state. And I think the legacy in a calligraphy is a very feminine thing.
Beautiful.
To give it a woman's touch.
Yes, that made me very happy when I saw that. That was very nice. Yes. Yeah, and yes. Keep going.
And it was just meaningful to me in the idea that, I don't know, I think that the building's kind of a her, and I was just happy to have the sun on her face again.
And she's quite lovely.
Yeah, she needs a bath, but she's doing well.
Well, she's been hidden for many, many years.
She has.
And, oh, my gosh, I just can't wait to see the rest of it. I
Yeah.
can't wait. So let's go back to growth and change. So you've been here for 3 years now. And, I've only been here since 2009.
Okay.
So the area that I came from was also on the water, on a Great Lake. And because people were afraid of change in that community, the downtown area really suffered. And it's still suffering to this day. I was on the zoning board there, and we rezoned the whole waterfront to be C2. And they kept putting it to vote, and we kept losing, so that it's still not developed. There's a old waterworks park and an old waterworks building, and which is a nice building, but it's falling apart now, and a baseball diamond on 20 acres of waterfront property.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that sad? So here in Bay City, are you ladies leaving?
Yes.
Bye. Come back again soon. So what mentality does, our waterfront is beautiful. And I'm sure when you lived here before, it wasn't like that.
No.
What do you think the difference is there?